It's the Stanley Bridge Celtic Lockdown Podcast, sponsored by Old's Beer and More and the Celtic Beer Hut. Aha! Stay tuned for more.
We're here on the 7th episode of the Stanley Celtic Lockdown Podcast, and we're joined by Craig Dootson. So I'd just like to welcome Craig onto the podcast.
Are you okay?
Yeah, good, thank you. The episode is sponsored by Old's Beer and More and the Celtic Beer Hut. Their socials will be in the description and on the video. Just go and give them a follow on their socials. The Old's Beer and More is a new bottle shop that's going to be open up in Market Street in Stanley Bridge, so make sure you pay a visit when it's open. The Celtic Beer Hut hopefully reopens when we're back playing. We're going to talk about Dootson's career and what he's up to now and sort of focus on his Stanley Bridge Celtic career. We originally you started out at Preston as a trainee, and you were told that you weren't tall enough, so you didn't make it there. Sort of, how did that all come about? Ending up at Preston?
I went to Preston. I never did. I didn't go YTS or anything like that. I stayed at college. My dad sort of said you need to make sure that you're. So I'm just waving to see you. I'm just said, oh, you need to make sure you stay at college. You know, you never know what could happen. So I went to Preston, and then I remember getting the conversation just as I sort of decided that I was going to do a bit of both. They called me in and said, I remember the conversation. They said to me, Dad, can you let us know how tall these grandparents are? I remember my dad sitting there, and I still remember it. I do know why I remember it, because it's funny and amused me. So his grandma was 6'2" till she had her legs off, and now she's 4 foot. So I don't know how you want to work it. And I just remember sitting there thinking, yeah, that's me done. And then that was like just before I was going to college. And then in the summer between school and college, I went from sort of 5'5" to 6 foot. Just in that summer period, like 8-9 weeks. Don't be wrong, I must have weighed about 4 stone or something, but you know, I significantly shot up. But that was it, like Preston, and that was me done. I never, you know, the keeper the year older than me was Dave Lucas. I was never going to compete with Lucas. He was far better than what I was, so it might have been an excuse for them to get rid, maybe, I don't know.
So you go on to Bamber Bridge, and I think you made your debut against Stanley Bridge. Do you think it's good for a goalkeeper to go into games when they're early on in their career and get that men's footy in?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, it was good for me because I'd gone to Morecambe before I went to Bamber Bridge, sort of, and I was tinkering around. I was playing in the A and B team then every week. We were playing against like Man United and Everton, and it was like the golden era at Man United. We were getting walloped every week, and then I never broke in the first team because I was still young. No one was ever at that level that Morecambe were going to risk putting a keeper my age in. And plus, we had Steve McAlaghy, who was coming to the end of his career, but you know, I wasn't competition for him. I was more just a training partner. Went to Brig. I played in a pre-season friendly for Bamber Bridge against Preston, against North End it was. And every year North End had walloped Brig. And that year we drew. And I had an absolute worldie. Sort of everything that got hit me. And I think Sonny Greenwood then rang me up and said, you know, do you fancy it? It was £6 a week. And at Morecambe, I wasn't getting paid. I was relying on Kenny Mayers, who obviously ended up coming to Stanley Bridge. Yeah, Kenny Mayers was we had to beg him to transport me up and down the M6 to Morecambe every week in his XR3i. You know, so I wasn't getting paid. I wasn't getting a penny. But then I went to Brig. It's on my doorstep because I'm from Adlington, which is only sort of 10-15 minutes from Bamber Bridge. £60 a week, and it was the best thing I ever did because it just toughened me up. You know, away from football, I'm probably as soft as, but at football, you know, I'm no shrinking violet. I don't mind getting stuck in when I'm at footy. So it was probably that. You know, I was surrounded by men. There was no kids in that team. It was a tough team that we had. You know, the Unibond then was a hard league. There was a lot of money knocking around as well. There was quite a lot of teams that had a bit of cash, and we did really well. You know, we had a good cup run, but it was probably the best thing that could have ever happened. And I try and encourage people to do it now. You know, like David May, I'm not going to say I'm the reason he went to Brentford because I'm not. But he was at Blackburn just playing in the 21s when I was coaching at Southport. And I begged Stephen Drench to get Blackburn to release him. We could come and play men's footy because I think as a keeper, I think you've got to play men's footy. Having watched under 21s football, apart from the obvious fact I'm over 21, I think that most goalkeepers could probably go and play at that standard. You're not really pressed, you know. When there's back passes, no one closes you down. A cross comes over. Generally, to be honest, the games I've watched, and this isn't all games, obviously, but the games I've watched, there's not many crosses come under your crossbar. But when you drop into the Unibond, you know, it's when the cross comes over, it's under the crossbar. And you know, there's been plenty of, you know, like Paul Sykes, who came to Stanley Bridge, he came not long after nearly breaking my neck in a challenge when he was at work. I think it was a workshop, somewhere like that. You know, so it was good for me, and I would encourage any young lad that's sort of tinkering, around the peripheries, the 21s, if you can get out into a decent Conference North, or even like what was Unibond, like a Northern Prem team, or like that, you've got to have go at it. It's character building, you know, and if you can't handle it, then you probably shouldn't be a keeper.
At that point, you got a good run of games in at Bamber, and you sort of started to get a bit of name for yourself when you were bought by Lee, who were big at the time. And they had a good goalkeeper as well at the time called, is it David Felgate?
Yeah, Felgate. Yeah, it was. So I've been at Brig. I've had a couple of seasons at Brig, and I was going to go to Tranmere. You know, I think I'd been in at Tranmere, and it was the year that they won the Worthington Cup. And I was flying, and do you know what? I was flying. I was doing well, but I twisted in training. Just felt like a bit of a tweak in my knee. Went to see the specialist the day after. I tore my cartilage in 2 places, and also they told me that I had no anterior cruciate ligament. I didn't know. You know, and I never had one. So that sort of scuppered. And he moved to Tranmere. I came back to Brig. It was weird, really, because it was Preston North End that did my rehab. Rathbone at Preston North End allowed me to train with them every day to do my rehab. And then I got back here, started playing again at Brig. I built up the strength in my legs to be able to do it without a cruciate ligament. And then we played Lee at home. I had a worldie, and Felgy pulled me after the game and said, "I'm going to get on to get you in for next season as my replacement." Like, right, it's a bit of a strange conversation after the game.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, he did. You know, and it was a good thing. You know, they got a bit of money. I think got a few bags of crisps and a Diet Coke for me. But you know, at the time, getting bought and going into the conference, like I said, you know, we were a big team. Bizarrely, we didn't get any fans because it was a rugby town, but I think we came 4th in the conference that year. You know, we were flying, we were a good side, and you know, that was a great move for me. Really good move. I enjoyed that move.
And what was it like to work with Felgy? Because you kept him out originally, and then did you break your arm?
No. So what I did, Felgy's a legend, to be fair. You know, when I got married, him and Ian Senior were best men at my wedding. And that's the esteem I hold both of them in. You know, I've got friends who are more my age group, without saying that they're both considerably older than me. But one thing, my best mate wouldn't speak in public, so no chance of getting him doing it. He's more likely to hit someone with something. But I thought it was probably best that they played a big part in me as a person and football. And Dave Felgate was class with that, because I got into league. Going to any club, a place who's a legend, you know, is really, really difficult. It's probably one of the most difficult things you could do, especially as a keeper, because you can't say you're going for any other spot. You can't say, "Oh, I'm coming in back and play anywhere." You can't. I'm a goalkeeper. That's it. And he was a legend. He played Fulham in the FA Cup. He was ridiculously good. You know, and I don't know, just get better with age. Then I think he'd inclined that he didn't want to play. And he took quite a lot of pressure off me because he got the fans on side with me. Which he didn't have to do. No, he didn't have to do that. That just tells you the type of guy that he is. He's such a nice guy. Went in and loved it. Loved training with him, because I learned so much. But it wasn't just the goalkeeping element that I learned off him. It was how to hold my own, not just as a goalkeeper, but as a person. So there were things like, as a goalkeeper, you can't escape the fans. You can't get away from the fans. The fans are right behind you for 90 minutes of the game. You learn that much about your mum and your kids and your missus in that match of them fans, because they'll tell you all sorts of stuff. When you're a young lad, you don't know how to deal with it. He taught me some stuff, you know, and he did. I remember him playing in a game, and they were slating him, calling him fat. And his response was, "The only reason I'm fat is because every time I sleep with your missus, she gives me a biscuit." And I just thought to myself, you know, they're never going to come on the pitch to have a scrap with me. So get mouth it, and I did, and I loved it. And that's probably, there's a lot of fans out there who don't like me, but they don't like me because I give it back.
Yeah.
You know, and I did give it back. Sometimes I probably went over the top, to be honest, because I thought, but that you know, I didn't just learn about how to be a better goalkeeper off Dave and Ian. I learned how to hold my own. And it was good. I got in the team. I was flying, and there was no animosity either. I sort of learned a lot about the goalkeeper union off Felgi as well. He made sure I was right for every match, regardless. And then I think it was Hereford away. I think I landed awkward on my knee. I must have been giving up that day. So I remember being on the floor, being injured, and I remember him throwing things at me while I was on the floor. And Dave Pover was the physio who ended up coming to Stanley Bridge. And I remember hitting him with like cans of Coke and things that they were throwing at me. And then Felgi got back in, and then I got back in. And it just sort of went like that. But it was bizarre, really. It was sort of just quite amicable. Whoever played, it didn't really matter. We were both happy for the other keeper. Strange, yeah.
I mean, you mentioned Dave Pover there, who's still at Stanley Bridge now. There's another podcast that I think I've listened to a few before. Wasn't there a story about something to do with you and Dave on a coach or something like that some people might not have heard if they've not listened to that one?
Yeah, me and Dave Felgi. Yeah, we got a little bit drunk on a trip on the way back from where did we play? It was a long way away. I just remember that we shouldn't have done the things that we did on the way down, never mind on the way back. But I was that drunk during the game because I'd thrown my toys out the pram at the back end of it. But when it was coming to an end at Lee, I knew I was leaving. I went to China with Great Britain universities, and the club had tried to sack me while I was in China, despite telling me I could go, and all sorts of things had gone on. And I did, you know, typical Craig Dootson fashion, proper, threw my toys out. And I got steaming during a game. I wasn't even in the squad, and I got absolutely bladdered. And I was drinking like bottles of Lucasade, but they're full of red wine. And on the way home, Dave Pover had to tuck me and Felgi up in the beds under the coach because I was that drunk that I couldn't even talk. And they had to hide me away from people because it was so bad. And then when I remember getting off the coach at Asda at Lee, where we used to get off, and my dad had pulled up in the car, and I just fell off the coach. Head first, and my man just drove off. I just said, "You can get home now." I was hammered, but Dave Pover had looked after me. He kept coming down to tilt me on my side to make sure I was all right. He was that worried about me. Out of everyone, I think Dave Pover got me the most. I think he realised I was a potential troubled soul. So we had a good drink that day. We sort of started before kickoff.
Wow.
Yeah.
When I was doing the research, you just mentioned it then. I thought I never heard something like this before, but you just mentioned about going away with the British universities for the Student World Games. What was that?
Well, bizarrely, so I was a student. I was a real student. Some of the team were not real students. Well, they were all students in the technical term that they were all on a course, but I wouldn't say they all attended university full time. I just remember, just got a thing for. I didn't even play for Edge Hill. I didn't play for my university. I played in the first year, but then in the second year, we was in the conference at Lee, and it was sort of, am I going to risk getting injured for my university when I'm earning X amount of hundreds of pounds on a Saturday? I was quite a rich student, to be honest. I lived at home. It was great. I was living the dream. And then we just got a thing through inviting us to Great Britain University's trials. Didn't even play for England. Missed the England bit and got invited for the Great Britain University trials. We turned up at where the first ones were. I think they were Loughborough. Played 45 minutes, didn't think nothing about it. I don't think I touched the ball. And then next thing we were invited into Bishop Abbey. And there were 20 odd of us there and told that we were the team that had been selected to go to China for Great Britain. It was a bit weird, really, because we were all conference players. They were all big, they were big name conference players in the team. But lads at Woking at the time, they were paying thousands. We were the richest student team, I think, ever. Went out to Hong Kong first, training camp, and then it went over to Beijing. And it was an experience. I think looking back, I could have carried myself a little bit better when I was out there than what I did. I think I would have probably enjoyed it more. I mean, there's things that we did quite right away from football that were ridiculously good, like the Great Wall of China. Everyone thinks it's just a wall until you're on it, and I can clearly say that when you're on it, it is something that is mind-blowing. But it was a great experience. I've still got all the photo album, things like that, and a few of the lads that we stay in touch with each other, which is not really the norm in football. Once you move on, you really keep in touch with one, maybe, but quite a few of the lads stayed in touch. But it was a good experience. It was, enjoyable. Typical, very similar to what happened at Leeds. Spat me out when I got dropped in a game and kicked the water bottles over and got told I was a disgrace. But in my eyes, I just kicked water bottles over. So,
yeah.
It's easy now when I'm a bit older, a bit more experienced. But obviously then I was just mad I wasn't playing.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I think we was actually against Japan, and Japan had beat us, and I think it's something like United players we won't have to beat. So, yeah, it didn't go down that well.
Wow. We sort of come to your time at Stanley Bridge now. You had 3.5 years here, or something like that, and you've had 136 appearances and 37 clean sheets. What was it like to play for Stanley Bridge, and do you have any memories that stand out?
No, I loved it being at Stanley Bridge, and I don't need to. Everyone that knows me know that I think the time at Stanley Bridge is my most enjoyable that I've ever had, regardless of what club it's ever been at. From everything, I remember the way I was treated when I came in is one thing, but also the way I was treated when I left. The way I was treated was fantastic. It was great. I was going to Bury. Everyone was happy for me that I was going into full-time football. Clearly people wanted me to stay, but the way that the club looked out for the players. We weren't a big paying team. There was no one in the team that was on ridiculous money, apart from Paul Sykes, if he watches this. But it was just enjoyable. Start to finish was great. And actually my biggest regret, and this will upset a few people, was when I broke my arm at Bury and I knew I was coming back into non-league football. I signed for Hyde, and my biggest regret was signing for Hyde and not re-signing for Stanley Bridge, because I did have that option. Steve Burr, I think it was at the time, wanted me to come back, and I didn't. And I went to Hyde for the wrong reasons. And I think, as everybody knows at Stanley Bridge, once you're a Celt, you're always a Celt. The Hyde fans know that as well, and the Hyde fans didn't like me from start to finish. I was at Hyde for 3 years. I stayed at Hyde for the finance. I didn't stay at Hyde because I loved my football. I stayed at Hyde because I knew I was on money. But my time at Stanley Bridge was great. The fans used to love it, walking through the door. You was met straight away. Was it? Beach's Grant. Dorothy. Used to meet you at the front. Always got a smile on the face. Used to always say you couldn't have any tickets, and then write down how many tickets you could have. And then you walk in and they'd have John Hall and a few of the others sitting them in the little room, generally throw abuse at them, and then just walk in, abuse the refs on the way through, and then in the dressing room. And it was just fun. You know what? There was no big time Charlies. It was a fun environment. And like I said, it was definitely the best time I've ever had playing football. I've had some great dressing rooms and had some great laughs, but for a prolonged period of time, that's the best for me, without a doubt.
So I've got a couple of questions that people have told me to ask. I think you mentioned about the fans before and how you learned how to give it back and stuff like that. What was the best or worst heckle you've ever had?
There's two that I hate. Well, there's one that I hate, and I hate it with a passion. And there's one that, now looking back on it, was great banter. But at the time, it nearly got me killed. So the first one is Southport. There's a guy at Southport, a fan at Southport. All he does all match is go, Craig, all match. He doesn't say anything else except Craig for 95 minutes. That's all he does. And I swear, if he'd come near the boards, I would have battered him. Because he doesn't say anything else. He doesn't abuse. What do you say back? What do you say back to that? You can't insult him.
No.
You can't talk about who he stood with, because he was stood on his own. And he just literally, Craig. Oh my God. It sent me insane. Every game I played against Southport, he did it for years after that because he knew he'd piss me off. But the best one was the Barrow fans did me proper, to be honest. The Barrow fans did me a treat. Their supporters association played a game before they played us at home. They played against Bolton Wanderers supporters, I think it was. And my partner at the time, who ended up my wife, her ex-boyfriend played for Bolton Wanderers. And he told them that he was still sleeping with her. So he came out to the game, and I remember coming, it was at home, and I come out of the tunnel, turned right, and was in that goal, and all the Barrow fans were behind the goal. And they were clapping me, and I was thinking, normally they're killing me. Why are they clapping me? So I clapped him, and as soon as I clapped him, he started singing, Gareth Donnelly, shags your bird, shags your bird. He sang it all match. And honestly, my missus at the time was in the stand, and they sang it and sang it and sang it. They were telling me, your daughter's not yours, your daughter's not yours, and all sorts. And they did me proper to the point where I was crying in the game at my head. Because actually, the fact is, I knew it was true. But I wanted to argue with them to say, actually, no, I've slept with these missus. That's what I wanted to. But I couldn't. How'd you get that argument overturned?
No.
Barrow fans behind the goal who were laughing at you because you're getting mad. And I did. I lost it. I completely lost it. I tried to get hold of a few of them, and it wasn't particularly pleasant. I remember she left the game with my mum and dad. They left early because it got that bad. You could tell how much it had got me. It made it worse. We got beat, so that made it even worse. But then I'd really give it to some of the fans, and then we had to play them away a couple of weeks later. And I just remember thinking, I didn't even go on the coach because I don't take people that much. I got a lift there because I didn't want them to see me getting off the coach.
Yeah.
No match, they ran it again. They were throwing things at me, but they had me for a couple of years with that, singing that. And I have a bit of fun with a couple of them on Twitter now, where I did it on another cast last year. It was a few of them chirped up about it, saying, "Oh, that was me." I just felt like saying, "No, it's all right. I know who you all were." Because at one point I had lost it. Driving home from that Stanley Bridge game that first day, Phil Eastwood refused to take me home. He actually stopped at the services and said, I can't take you home, mate. You need to calm down. Because I was on the phone to people asking, where can I get all sorts of things from? Because I was going to go and really hurt Gareth Donnelly. And it was banter. It's the worst heckle ever. I mean, most other clubs are all sort of standard. You get the same, generally about my nose. You're fat, even if you're not fat. You mentioned your mum. And like I said, you can't get away from it. You're stuck.
No.
You're right in the mix. There's nothing at all you can do. You're stuck there. So you have to sometimes just give stuff back. And there's some things that I would say that I would never, ever repeat on a podcast. Because I think my kids watch it, they'd be mortified that the dad would actually say them things. But yeah, most of them, Heckles on the side of the pitch, and then it's done and dusted. There's been a couple of clubs where it's carried on in the back. If I knew that was happening, when I was at Stanley Bridge, I waited for Kenny Mayers to leave, and I followed Kenny to the bar, because I always knew there was going to be trouble. Kenny was a big lad, he would be all right. And I also had to back up what my mouth had got me into, so they're probably the worst too. I've been heckled off my own fans. At Hyde, I got heckled off my own fans. One particular guy, big fat guy, used to abuse me at the stand. I was their keeper.
Wow.
He just never liked me because I think I did say something about his weight when I was at Stanley Bridge. Referred to something to do with Weight Watchers or something. So.
Another one was it was actually Beachy that asked, just said to mention anything about Dave Miller.
Dave Miller, what a guy he was. Dave Miller. So, some Dave, he used to, believe it or not, you wouldn't even know this by just people in football who see him just as a manager wouldn't know that. You can actually, there's a song that he sings, "Sweet Child of Mine," which clearly I'm never ever going to try and repeat that song. But Dave Miller can actually sing that song and does it with the actions and everything. And he used to just randomly burst out with that song. We went to Newry on a trip. To be careful how much about the trip I let out, but we went on a bit of a pre-season trip to Newry, friendly games, which ended up in just a lash up because we were supposed to be training one day. But I remember at 4 o'clock in the morning, Dusty or Dave Miller was sat on the piano in the hotel bar, blasting out "Sweet Child of Mine" with a cigar in his hand, telling us all that golf's off in the morning, and if you're not in the bar by 11, you're fine. And we literally had to be in the bar at 11, and we got that drunk. We were flying home that night. We got that drunk. There were lads getting back. I remember getting back to, I think it was Liverpool we flew to. Like lads had lost golf clubs and everything, like full golf clubs, clothing, everything had gone. Nathan Wharton just had a putter coming round. Someone had took his entire bag. We were that drunk. No one knew what had ever. That's probably summed him up really. But manager-wise, there was him and Jerry Lutchka, and I just called Jerry the KGB. Don't know. I used to say he was a Russian spy. And they were quite a good double act, really. Looking back, I can't remember things like tactics and stuff like that. But we must have done something right because we did well. We were competitive for a couple of seasons, which without really, we didn't, like I said, we didn't break the bank, players wise. We had a good team, but we were by no means at the top of the budget list. He was a good guy. He just didn't take banter very well, or when he was sober. When he was drunk, he was great. But when he was sober, he didn't. I know he upset me once. He called me. I'd had a hernia off, and said he didn't blame me directly for getting beat off. He basically did. Well, actually, he did. He called me soft, but not to my face. And I jumped up and kicked the bin at him. He went off down the tunnel, and I was screaming at him down the tunnel, trying to get some Kenny Mayers and a few people holding me back. And when he realised Kenny Mayers and a few others were in between us, he turned around and went, "Oh, come on, then." And I couldn't get to him, so I was getting madder and madder because I couldn't get to him. And then afterwards, we were just laughing and joking about it. It was. I like playing for him. I really enjoyed playing for him, and I knew him from that short time at Morecambe because he was up there with Jim Harvey. And he came in, and obviously dead knowledgeable. We had a really good reputation, and he did all right with me. I can't grumble about the things that that went on with us. It was a lot. Any fallout, generally I'd say with most managers with me, it was my fault. So,
I mean, I will mention another manager now. I mean, I spoke to him earlier today, and one of the questions we're going to ask later is about a five-a-side team. And I spoke to John Reid, and he put you in his five-a-side team. How was it to work under Reid?
I enjoy working under Reid because he's as big as a lunatic as me, and he sort of let you off the leash a little bit, which was good really because a lot of people are, like I said before, away from football, I'm so soft. But not even at football, I'm soft. But on a pitch, you do have that facade where, especially as a keeper, I would. There was no barriers to what I would do, and Reedy sort of allowed us to be that way. I think just before him was it Raggy? I think Rag came in for a bit, and he wasn't sort of curtailed a bit of the aggression in my game. I was at my best when I was aggressive. And Reedy allowed us to play that way, and I did. You just get you so fired up for a game. You used to think like you could set the world on, And I never had cross words with Reedy, because I think he was the manager when I was going to Bury. He didn't want me to go, he wanted me to stay, but I was in a position where I couldn't afford to take that gamble at that point. Looking back, was it a good thing to do? Probably not, but I'm also, there's not many people can turn around and say, well, I was a pro footballer for a bit.
Yeah.
That side of it's great. It was just, I did enjoy working for him. Mark Atkins, obviously, he was unbelievable who was with him. We had a really good team. Training was fun and enjoyable. But Reedy, for someone so small, wow. And I think that was it. I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because he did just let you be who you wanted to be. He let you be. You was a nutcase. He let you be a nutcase. Or if you was a silky footballer, he would let the nutcases look after the silky footballer. That's the way it was. And tactically, he knew everything as well. Mark Atkins, he knew everything about the opposition. He knew all about the players, which was good for us because we didn't have that probably for 14, 15 games before he came in. It was sort of just we were just too nice. We were too nice. I don't think we won a game for quite a period of time till they came in. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good. It's good to see him put me in. He's probably put me in the five-side team because my nose makes up for his life. So it's probably why.
Just before we move on, I've just got a few questions about sort of your players that you played with. Who was the best player you played with at Celtic?
Best player at Celtic? Wow. Some good ones, but I really enjoyed playing with Colin Potts. I love playing with Pottsy. I wanted to kill him sometimes because he doesn't know how to defend. There was just so many different players for different things. Like Danny Caldecott was great, Nathan Wharton was brilliant, but then Kev Parr. Kev Parr was brilliant. Everyone goes, "Oh, who's the best player you play with?" I play with people like Lee Trundle and stuff, and they are by far and away technically the best player you've ever played with. But people like Kev Parr, just for what he give you, but also what he give you off the pitch. Kev Parr was the captain on and off the pitch, and I really enjoyed playing with him. I think, he's older than us and he used to look after us quite a bit. And he was an experienced Stanley Bridge lad as well. Trying to think who else. Chrissy Denham, when we was there, Chrissy Denham was class. He was so fast. It was ridiculous. We had Greg Pearce, centre-half, Kenny Mayers. Oh my, do you know what? I wouldn't even want to say who was probably the best. We just had, like Sykes, he came in and he obviously ends up as a Stanley Bridge legend. And rightly so, because he was outstanding. He was something we didn't have. He certainly didn't have his long, flowing, blonde locks. Bizarrely, for someone who looked like such a girl, was an absolute lunatic. And I enjoyed playing with him. It was so enjoyable. But there was Danny Hooper, technically, was probably up there with as good as anybody, when Hoops was there at the beginning. So it was. I wouldn't like to say probably the best in relation to what he did on and off the pitch. Probably Parry when I was at Stanley Bridge. I loved it. I loved it working with him.
The next one, I bet you fancy yourself probably as a bit of a funny man. But who would you say the funniest player was?
Pottsy, Colin Potts. Colin Potts is the funniest. There was him. We used to travel in, me, Kenny Mayers, Darren Bowman, and him. The minute he got in the car, nothing he'd say. Nothing. But then again, there was like that in the dressing room. Nobody would say it in that dressing room. Whether it was before the game, people doing stupid stuff to you, or whether it was after the game, people peeing on you in the showers. But Colin Potts used to do stupid things that you think, why was that even funny? But I remember once we were sat in traffic, he kept looking up at the sky, thinking, "What are you doing?" He's looking out the window, looking up at the sky, pointing. You're going, what are you doing? So we all trying to look out the window, thinking, what's he looking at? And we didn't know he'd seen a woman coming, walking up the road at the side of the car. And I swear now, honestly, she's walking. I don't even remember where we were at Mill Road because we had to come off I think we nipped to the shop or something. We'd come off early. And this woman started looking up at the sky and Potsy's looking up, pointing up at the sky. And she ended up walking right into a sign. It's one of the funniest things. And we were all sat in the car howling, laughing. I'm I nearly weed a little bit. But stupid. But banter like that amuses me a lot. Kev Parr would be in the shower and he'd hold his willy to the very, very end so that when he weed, he would shoot straight up and he'd hit you in the face. Things like that amuse me. Old school banter is the best banter. If you were to do that now to one of these young lads, oh my God, you've been caught.
Yeah.
There was no one safe. I remember, he was funny. Chrissy Denham was a bit of a joker. I remember karaoke. Was it Sportsman, the pub going down there? We did karaoke one. We all gone out and had a few drinks once, and we did karaoke. And people were naked, and we ran off with the clothes and left them in the pub naked, and ran down into Staley Vegas. It was enjoyable. Potsy's probably the funniest lad I've had in a dressing room. I've had played with funny players since. It was more, we were all mates, which made it better.
Yeah.
We all drank together. Right now, you're thinking, good God, some of them Thursday nights after training. No, we could certainly drink a few beers because it was mandatory. You had to go back to the sportsman after training. You had to go back. If you didn't go back, you were fined. But yeah, I would definitely say Cole, with a combination of a couple of others like Nathan Watt, Danny Calder, and Chris Denham were like all about the same height as Bilbo Baggins, and they were all ruthless when they got together, regardless of who you were. No one was safe. But I'd certainly go with Potts. Was my funniest, probably because I travelled with him as well.
You mentioned about like old school banter then and how it wouldn't get about now. What do you think of how non-league has changed from back then to now?
Put it this way, we never had a protein shake on a coach. I get why it's changed, and I do. There's a lot of money involved now. Not that we didn't respect the fans, because we did, but our way of respecting them was we'd have a pint with them after the game. Now I think you're under that much scrutiny. Like your mobile phone is your biggest killer. You know, people film some of the stuff we did back then. You know, and never mind what people were doing 10 years before us. Not saying the banter's gone, because the banter hasn't gone. It's just different. There's some clubs still have it. You know, I worked under Bobbyjono at Salford, and that is as close to a line as you could possibly get for a long period of time. You know, and we have some fun where I'm at now. It's just everyone's an athlete now. You know, I remember pre-season. You'd come back from pre-season, and the lads wobbling in. They just spent like 8-9 weeks on the lash.
Yeah.
Well, now you don't. Your lads come back on the first day of pre-season, pristine shape, you know, the chisel. Look at some of the lads at Chorley now. You're in the dressing room. You're looking at lads who are like absolute specimens. Where we'd probably start running 8-9 days before pre-season started because we'd just been drinking all the way through. And like I said, after the game, you'd be straight in the bar having a pint. If you didn't go in the bar and have a pint, you were fined. Where now there's lads walking across with the protein shakes and a bar, and you know the body's a temple, which is great. You know what? And I'm not digging that out. I enjoyed it more then than what I do now. That's probably why I enjoy working with Vermo and Precy at Chorley, because we do have obviously not at the minute, but you know, when you can't have a pint, you have a pint after the game. You know, a coach trip at all, we'll certainly have a glass of wine and a beer. So I enjoy that side of it. I do think it's changed. I think some of it's had to change for the better. I think some of the things we used to do, you get destroyed for now. You know, when I was a young lad, some of the stuff that went on at football clubs, you know, you get caned for that. It'd be on Snapchat and Twitter, and there'd be people getting sacked left, right, and centre, even though it is just banter. There's no harm in it. Silly banter if people find it funny. The minute someone doesn't, then it flips the other side. So, but I do, you know, I miss that side of it. I've got to say, you try and keep it alive the best you can. You know, coaching wise, I try and keep it alive the best I can, but it's harder these days.
Yeah. Carrying on then, who do you think is the worst dressed player that you've played with at Celtic?
Worst dressed player ever played with at Celtic. Worst dressed. Wow, there were some bad ones. Nathan Wharton, Danny Caldecott. Generally, we gone out on night out. The tops were off at some point anyway, so it didn't matter what they were on. Worst dressed. Let me just have a look at my WhatsApp group to just see who on here do I think. I can't say Earl because Earl will kill me. Oh, Dave German. 100% Dave German. I think he still wears boot-cut jeans now. Yeah, well, I probably said Dave German, but not that he would be bothered one bit. I go through some of the other ones looking on here. No, I would probably say, I'll go with Dave German. Yeah.
And then the final one in your Celtic teammates is if you had to pick a five-a-side team, and you can put yourself in if you want to, but who would you pick?
Who would I pick? Five-a-side team. Oh, Potsy would have to play. I'll not put myself in goal. I'll put Phil Priestley in. I like Phil, and he's a lot larger than me, so he'd fill the goal. Probably whether to go for brute size or speed. So I don't know, probably Danny Caldecott, Nathan Wharton, Danny Hooper, and Potts would be a decent five-a-side team. Or if you wanted to scare the opposition, I'd have to put Earl in there with Sykesy, Kenny Mayers, and probably Greg Pearce. I don't think we'd win many games. But I don't think many teams would enjoy playing against them at five-a-side now.
No.
Yeah.
No. So the next part of your career was, you mentioned you got your chance in full-time football. What was that like when that came about?
You know what? It was different. On the Friday I was working, eating Kentucky Fried Chicken for my dinner, and then on the Monday I was at Bury doing pre-season. Probably, I don't think difficult. I was a non-league standard goalkeeper. I think my opinion now, looking at it. I think what was really difficult at Bury, I signed at the same time as Neil Edwards, who was always going to be number one. He's never played anywhere outside the Football League. But we got into Bury. I'd obviously gone in as his number two. And we had a goalkeeping coach with Fred Barber. We had the same goalkeeping coach as Bolton Wanderers. So 2-3 days a week we would train at Bolton Wanderers with Jaska Leinen and Ian Walker. And it was probably a bit much for me. I loved it, don't get me wrong. It was great. Some of the things that we got up to were great, and Fred was an unbelievable coach. I probably wasn't ready, having come from non-league, to going into that, with an international goalkeeper, well, a few international goalkeepers, and then staff who was brilliant. We had Jill, who was at Rochdale. He trained with us as well. I was significantly behind that. I did my best to try and keep up with them, but it's hard when you don't play, and you're trying to make a reputation for yourself. And it was very, very hard. I'd gone from working and playing to just playing, to the point where I'd finish at like 1 o'clock, and I felt like I was skiving, because I thought, well, I've got any work to do. Because I was used to working 9 to 5 or 10 to 6, whatever it was. I didn't really enjoy it in that year as much as what I could. And then I got in the team, and obviously it's significantly different when you get in the team. I got in, and I think it was 5 or 6 games, and then I snapped my arm against Barnet. Didn't feel as bad as it was originally. It just felt like a dead arm. And then I remember trying to play on with it, and I soon found out it was definitely broke. I was devastated, because I didn't want it to. I knew it was the end then, because it was sort of mid I think it was late February when it happened, and I just knew that I was never going to get re-signed. New manager would come in, Chris Casper, who I don't think particularly liked me. I don't think he rated me. Then it made it even harder when they replaced me with Casper Schmeichel. So what do you do with that? You go from sort of, the Bury fans like you because you knew you're young, you're fresh, and then suddenly Casper Schmeichel's in, and within a game you were forgotten. Casper come from Man City then, and I remember sat in the stand, and I was sat near his dad. We scored in the crowd with the fans, and I remember thinking, do us a favour, mate. Because he just killed you. He just killed you off, and it was. He was good, but I sort of realised then that I was never going to be that level, and as much as I thought I could have been. I think it was 24, 25 when I went to Bury. It was sort of, I'd have maybe done it when I was 19, 20. I might have been able to develop, but I wasn't the young kid. So people weren't willing to give you the time that you needed, because you're mid-20s. I think people expect you to be there or thereabouts, and I wasn't good enough. So I didn't enjoy it as much as what I should. And then obviously injury, there's a lot of metal in my arm now after that. It's still in now. But it was never right after that.
So it comes to the end of that time, and to mention a few of the clubs before the end of your career, you had Hyde, Alfreton, Fleetwood, Harrogate, Altay, and I think Kendal as well. Do you have any of them that stand out as another time you enjoyed?
You know what, the Hyde one started off well in relation to who we had there. I met some real good mates with them. We had players who'd been with me at Stanley Bridge, like Danny Caldecott and Nathan, and then a real good mate of mine, Gas Seddon. He was there. Earl Davies was there, and we had a really, really good team. And then I think the club just sort of got ideas of up the station. We were flying. We should have lost that league. The team we had, Matthew Tipton, Chris Sim, Nicky Plea. But then it just sort of, I don't know, it got to the new year. We went from flying at the top to suddenly about 8th or something. And brought in a load of new players that didn't really set in with us. And then 2 years of that. And then there was money issues that, obviously don't go too much into it. But when you're not getting paid, you're expected to turn up 3 times a week. You're not getting paid. My argument was always, well, would you do this if it was your job? Would I turn up and not get paid? And I remember making a stance, and it was at Stanley Bridge.
I was just going to mention that.
And I refused to play because I'd not been paid for 8 weeks. Don't get me wrong, I knew where I was going to go next because an agent had rang me and said, these want you. Terminate your contract now. Take you now. I wanted my money that was owed. I was owed a lot of money. It was in the thousands.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think I told them I wanted checks or plus-80 checks when I got to the game. Neil Tolson, I think, was there. And they didn't give them me, and I think they named me in the team. And I went, don't waste your time. And I went and sat in the stand. It happened to be at Stanley Bridge. I just remember sitting in the stand and the game kicked off, and I remember thinking, what have I done? What have I done? And we got apps. I think he pasted us. Clearly, that was going to be my fault. The Hyde fans just detested me, but I get it as a fan. I understand that you see a player that makes that stand. Would I make it again? Probably not at the game. I probably would in the week. I probably still would stick to my guns a little bit. I've thought about it. So you're not paying me. Would I get up and go to work if you weren't paying me? Probably not. No. So that then was disgusting then because I became a leper. I was obviously a leper because I come from Stanley Bridge. I suddenly became really, really disliked. Probably you can't blame people. Let me shut the doors. The dog's whining.
That's okay.
It was that wasn't particularly great. I went there to Alfredson. Great idea, but then for me there was a significant change. Then I was playing just for money. I had young kids, well, a young kid, and I knew there was going to be another one. And can you hear the dog?
It's okay.
And I literally went to Alfredson. It was 127 miles from my door to Alfredson and 127 miles back. And it was impossible. I couldn't do it. And I tried to do it, and they were patient with me. I got really, really lucky. I worked in Blackpool, and I suddenly got a phone call saying Fleetwood Town have put an offer in for you. They're going to buy you. It was like the best thing in the world. I was thinking, you've got to be kidding me. And I went to Fleetwood with a clause that said I couldn't play against Alfredson. And lo and behold, who did we get in the playoff final? Alfredson. And we beat them. Yeah, and then Fleetwood went full time. At that point, my career at work, I was doing well at work. And I wasn't willing to sacrifice football. I didn't love the game, but I knew I was playing for money. And it was a bad place to be. There was a lot going on off the pitch. No coincidence. Early on in my career, most of my contracts were 2-3 years. When I got to the end, it was 6 months here, 1 year there, 6 months here, 1 year. And it was because I had so much going on. When you look back, it was not a particularly great time for me. And ended up in a not particularly great place because of it. But then Kendal, I loved being at Kendal. Fans, that's why I hate seeing where it is now, because I really did enjoy it. I love playing for Lee Ashcroft. I think very similar to Reid, he got me. He knew, because he is completely up there. And Ash's coaching is as good as I've ever seen. He got me and just let me be me. But then unfortunately Kendal came under a few issues in relation to money. A lot of people left, but I stayed to try and help the young lads. And I'm glad I did, because I then was playing football because I enjoyed playing football, not because I was picking the money. But I knew it was my last year then.
Yeah.
I just tailored off. I went to Droylsden, and probably the worst thing I could have possibly ever done. Went there, and I remember, I'm not proud of it by any means, but I remember playing Grantham away, and I remember thinking we play Chorley next week at Chorley. And I don't want to play at Chorley. I'm from Chorley. We were getting hammered every week. And I remember the centre forward coming through from Grantham, and I just thought, oh, you're going airmail. And I did. I just volleyed him up in the air outside the box to get a red card. And he, that wasn't a particularly good thing to do, but there was no way I was playing against Jolly. I think Jolly ended up beating him about 13-1 or something daft.
Wow.
I'm glad I weren't involved in, because my mates would have really enjoyed that game. But yeah, I think playing wise, near the end, Harrogate was okay, but Fleetwood was great. I only left Fleetwood just because they'd gone full time, and I couldn't. Well, they understood. They offered me a contract, but my contract was like £150 a week or to go full time, but I was on £30,000 a year at work. How would you give that £150 a week? It doesn't. The two don't match up. I don't know. Quite a few lads I've discussed this with over the years, and I was 30. I think it was 31 or something at the time, and I just said, no, I'm done. I can't do that. Work's got to come first now. I'm not going to get a 10-year contract until I'm 40, but I couldn't get through, which, touch wood, I've done all right with work, and I think it's horrible. It's probably the right decision at the time. I could have stayed, but I'd stayed very friendly. Mickey Mellon, because I've worked with him since at Tranmere and stuff, and Andy Pilly I still speak to. They're great people, but probably after Stanley Bridge, Fleetwood was up there, and then Kendall was probably enjoyable wise. It was great. I enjoyed it there.
So we come to the end of Craig Dootson's playing career, and I think one of the first things you did was you had 3.5 years at Salford as goalkeeper coach.
I went to Fowl first, literally just for a year. I wanted to be an agent. I wanted to be a footy agent. I had my mind set. That's what I was going to be. I was going to help people. And it was the year, I think it was around that time, they took off. You used to have to take an exam to be an agent or something like that. And it all set. And then suddenly they removed it. And every time they can only become a football intermediary, everyone suddenly become an agent. I flooded the market, and I didn't want to do it because I wanted to do it because I backed myself to pass the exam, and I backed myself because of contacts and because I wait, being not right. I'm also, relatively intelligent at work, and I thought, I'll be all right with this, and it just watered it down for me. I didn't want to do it, and then Dave Challoner rang me and said, "Do you fancy coming coaching for me for a year?" And I didn't really want to, but then I went, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I worked with Ben Hinchcliffe, and then under mine owned the goalkeeping school and over in Yorkshire, and he had me doing bits for him. I really got into it, and then I ended up, bizarrely, my first year of coaching. My mate was goalie coach at Leeds with Neil Sullivan. Neil Sullivan was first team goalie coach, and he was second, under 21s or under 24s, whatever it was, 23s. But his missus was TV, and she was going on to I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here, and he needed someone to cover for a number of weeks for him. I went in thinking, I'm just taking the kids. So I went to Leeds, drove up to Thorpe Park, just taking the kids, and I turned up, and the first day I had 9 pro keepers, but luckily enough, the best thing was one was Alex Kearns, who'd been at Stanley Bridge. So the first thing he said to me was, I've seen your picture up in the tunnel at Stanley Bridge. And it was weird because it just like broke the ice, and he was great, he was unbelievable. And I went there, and then obviously it was only everything at Leeds. I was never going to be goalkeeping coach at Leeds as much as I would love to have been, but it was a good experience for me to see how it worked, and I took loads from that period with Neil Redford. And then got to the end of the year, Salford, bizarrely, Bobbyjono's first game was against Bamber Bridge, and Jay Lynch had broke his arm. And they rang us up and said, we need a goalkeeper, and I said, I haven't got one. I even remember the game, we were supposed to be playing Telford on Saturday. We knew it was going to be off because the pitch was flooded. I said, no, we want you. Like, you got to be kidding. I ain't played for a year. And they were like, no, we want you just because of your mouth, and you'll organise, and we know what we'll get off you. I remember playing the game, and we won, and I had a decent game as well, even though I looked like Barney the Dinosaur and all. Had a really good game. Then they had a goalie coach, so I didn't even have a conversation with them because I don't believe in stepping on people's toes with things like that. And he said, we want you to come in. And I was like, well, you've got a coach. I'm not going to do it while you've got a coach. And then when the season come to an end, they rang me. They said, we want you in. I said, what about your coach? They went, what coach? And then I was in. That was it. And to be fair, I loved it at Salford. Take away all the razzmatazz and all the all the stuff that goes on. But I tended not to get involved with it. Probably up until the last year, I stayed out in the documentary quite a bit, and then leave that to Bernard, Jono. Well, more Jono than Bernard. Jono liked all that side of it, but it was good. The club are good. Karen's unbelievable. What she does there, she's great, and like the committee guys, like all of them. There's not one of the committee guys that I wouldn't, they're all brilliant. And obviously the owners were always all right with me. I didn't spend much time with them because I'm just the goalie coach at the end of the day, but they're always great with me. And I see a few of them meetings about at hotel football and places like that. They always went away to speak, so I must have done all right while I was there. But it was good. It was enjoyable. I really did enjoy it. Even when we went up, I stayed on. Used to do my hour in the morning and then shoot off to work quick. So yeah, it was good.
When you speak about Bern and Jono, everyone knows them as quite characters in non-league. What was it like to work with them?
You know what? They're good. Everyone see you see what you see on the documentary, or you see what you see on the sideline. Don't be wrong, you will not cross either of them by any means. If they come after you on a night out, you would. But the reality of it is what they don't get credit for is the stuff that no one else sees. They're very, very good at picking a team. They've picked a team that they trust. So they're doing it now with Chester. They pick a team that will live and die for them. They will do the same for the players. They have a very simple theory of one in all in, and that is really paramount to what they do. But also, what you don't see is Jono picks up every little detail. He knows everything about the opposition. He knows every set piece. He knows every player. He knows the insides of everything. And Bert is a really good coach. He doesn't like admitting it because I don't think sometimes they probably struggle to take credit for things like that. Yeah. What you see is the ranting, the raving and screaming. Don't get me wrong, they do rant, rave and scream. But, I've been in the dressing room a few times thinking, right, I couldn't play for them. I think I'd have lost it and I'd have ended up in a bad way because I think they would have beat me up. But what people don't see is the attention to detail. And they're really, really good at it. They didn't get any credit. Not saying they didn't get any credit. When we went to Salford and we went full time that first year, what people don't realise is we turned up at a training ground with nothing. We had nothing. I remember meeting, and it was the kit man, Rushy. The club would never have took off being pro. I did not with people like Rushy and Jono and Bernard, who, they really got hold of it. I remember Rushy being down at the training ground, putting things up on the wall in the dressing room, and making sure we had everything. We used to order our own dinners. Bern would order food for the lads. Training, we couldn't train on the pitch. It was Bern and Jono that was arranging somewhere else for us. In that first year, I'm not saying it's probably very different now, but that first year, there was so many things went on. I think a lot of people were looking for them to fall flat on the face. When we went full time, I think people were saying they'll never do it. They'll never do it. They did do it. They're capable of doing it. They actually lost the job after getting promoted.
Yeah.
Promoted that year. Granted, you can't say you're lucky if you get promoted. I don't think we're particularly great that season, but we got promoted. And they lost their jobs, and the club was going one way, and they didn't see them in the equation. I stayed for a little bit and worked under Greza, but it was very different. We had a real good understanding. Bern and John, I would take the goalkeepers and then go to work. Where Greza wasn't used to that environment. He was used to someone who had a job. And I get on great with Graham. But I just said to him one day, Graham, I can't do this. I've got my other job, pays all my bills, which pays nothing.
Yeah.
It just about covered my maintenance. That was it. And I just had to, I knocked it on the head. I made the decision. I found my own replacement. I found out Carlo Nash was looking for a job. I rang Carlo. Exactly, found your own replacement. I remember ringing Graham up saying, I think I've got someone who can take the job. I think, because I do. I loved it at Salford. A great club, and I've gone back quite a few times. Obviously, not in the last year, but I've gone back a few times. I love going back, and I'll sit with Karen and take my little lad to the game. And I really like what we've done there. Just never. I really enjoyed it so much, probably because of the Bern and Jono effect. As much as him could fall out, I made no mistake about it. We could definitely fall out. It was still, you know, sort of from my side, hopefully from his, definitely a respect there for each other for what we did. You know, and it must have shown because he used to leave me be with the goalkeepers. You know, they just let me go. I said the goalkeepers weren't doing something, they weren't doing something, we didn't argue with it, that was it. So, but they are very knowledgeable, and I think that's what, you know, they don't win a win ratio isn't what it is without being knowledgeable again. Yeah. So,
and then you had a taste of, I mean, I know it was a difficult time, but you tasted as assistant manager at Kendal. I think they had no money, and I remember seeing you on Twitter just trying to scrape a team together. Really, what was that like?
Oh, so Steve Edmondson was like, he was manager, I think he was, and I knew Steve because he was there when I was leaving, and he said, "Oh, do you fancy coming in as assistant manager?" And I was like, "Well, not really, no." He said, "Oh, come on, it'll be good, it'll be fun." And he owns a place up in the lakes, and he said, "You know, I'll treat you. I'll make sure you can have a few weekends away." That sort of softened it for me. He's a great player. And I remember saying, "Right, what's the team like?" He said, "Well, we're struggling for players." I went, "How many players have we got?" He said, 3. I said, "What?" He said, 3. I went, "What, 3 injured or we've got 3?" And he said, "No, we've got 3. Everyone's left." I just remember sat there just going, "You've got to be kidding me. Like, is this a banter?" I was looking around for someone to jump up. And we literally, I had to beg every contact I had for players. And so I had to say to them, "Listen, you're not going to train. We ain't going to train. We're going to turn up against Market Drayton first game. And we're going to see what happens." On the Thursday night, I drove over to like Merseyside to sign a player on. And I drove to Ashton United's training ground to sign the keeper on. Man let me take a keeper. Then I'd gone somewhere else to sign a player. Chorley it was to get a couple of young lads signed. And I'm all ready for the Saturday. And Market Drayton, and just with a team of kids that hadn't even met each other. And we got there, I just remember thinking, horrible. Dressing room was disgusting. And I thought, we're going to get hammered. We're going to get hammered. And the club had really deteriorated. Warm-up tops smelt of mould. It wasn't nice, to be honest. I was quite sad about it, really. It gave me a bit more of a bite to try and get a fix for them. Anyway, we beat Market Drayton. We were I'm sure we were 2 or 3-0 down in the first 20 minutes. I remember thinking, this is going to be 10, 15. We beat them. And I've never had that. I think I celebrated that night when I got back more than I'd celebrated any game. Just got absolutely leathered. Not that it doesn't very much, but it was just, believe it, this team of kids had just turned Market Drayton over. And there's a lot of people come out, help me out. I had like Steve Cunningham, who's at Curzon now. He sent me the entire Market Drayton team with all the data on the team and all the breakdown of the players. And I was like, "Don't kidding me. Why would you do that, man?" And it just because but I suppose the theory is if you don't ask, you don't get. What's the worst that someone can say? He helped me out. There's a few other managers, Peter Band and people like that, proper non-league lads who really helped me out. I did enjoy it, but then I got an offer then that, I'd only been in there a couple of games, and then Liverpool asked me to take over there, and I'm not really sure you said no to that, to be honest. So,
no. I mean, what was it like to go to Liverpool? And I know you went into the women's game. What was that like as well?
Yeah, it was. So 2 things. One was Liverpool. Difficult because I'm a Man City fan. So that was a bit of banter. But the club, it was the fact it was Liverpool was great. The players, and I would never say a bad word about any player at Liverpool Football Club. Certainly not about any female player. The knowledge that they want to get, no matter what level you've been at, they will suck all the knowledge out of you if they can. There were players there that were vastly experienced in the women's game who were really eager to learn what I knew, even as a goalkeeper, even if it wasn't anything about goalkeeping. The other side of it is that, the manager's now gone. She's not there anymore, but we didn't get on particularly great. And I don't know whether I don't see, most other managers that I'd fell out with over the years, I would happily take it on the chin and say that was my fault. This was a little bit different. Even to the, it was great early on. It was good. The women's game is just very, very different. I found it, I'm not saying hard. Although I did find it hard. There were things like, so like the dressing room. I'm used to being in the dressing room having a laugh and a joke with the players. But obviously, in the women's game, as a male member of the staff, you can't do that.
Yeah.
The manager's done the team, so you've come out. I don't know if it's an actual rule or not, but as a respect, last thing they need is some 40-year-old guy in a dressing room while there's a lot of women getting changed.
Yeah.
I don't actually, based on that, I don't think the players would have bothered one bit, knowing obviously I'd stay with them for a while after that. But I found that difficult, having to wait on the pitch for the goals to come out. I found that difficult. I was used to being in the dressing room having a laugh and a joke. But then the game was very different. And I don't think it's the women's game in general. I think the women's game in general is great. I think just my experience, I'm not saying that was down to one particular person. There's probably a couple of factors in it. But it was a shame that it was like that, because there was like things like we went to the States, we did the tour to America with the men's team, we went over, turned up, private plane, Liverpool FC on the plane. I remember being stood in a queue and I had Van Dijk in front of me and then some behind me, and it was like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
But then when we got to the other end, the men went one way, the women went the other. The men, obviously, they're on a different stratosphere, and I understand that. The women's game's trying to get there. But I think that there's people who aren't there now, but they certainly should have embraced trying to get involved with the men a little bit more, rather than see it as us and them. There's always that perception that, the male game doesn't want to accept it. Actually, I've seen it the other way, where actually there was people in the female game who didn't want to get involved with the men's game. And I don't know why fear it. Why fear it? Embrace it.
Yeah.
But then when I see other clubs, see Man City, all the other clubs, who else is at Arsenal, they do embrace it. They want to learn all the time, and you can see that the difference in the standard of what they do. I'm not saying it's down to the men's game, it's just the fact that it's football, it's not a men and women, it's just football. Football's simple. I think it's very complicated by people at times. And then it did end quite, in the States. I was ready to come home in the States. If it not been for the goalkeepers who I got on so well with, I would have come home and I've flown home myself. It wasn't a particularly nice 10 days. I made it as nice as I could in relation to myself, because obviously I was away from home, and but I tried my best just to focus on the players, and I spoke to a lot of players since who said that I helped them through what was a very difficult tour, and it was a difficult tour. It was hard. Like training in the daytime, 2 o'clock. The men would never have done that. The local. Why the friggin' I picture on my phone after the training? It must have took me 2 days to cool down. When there was a bin on the side of the pitch, it was that hot. The bin had melted into the AstroTurf in that day. And I was saying, well, the men wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do it. You'd stand your ground. Eating times were wrong, and there were lots of things that were wrong. And I know I'm fixing a lot of those issues. And to be fair, I think they fixed most of them. But it was, as a character, I'm not somebody who keeps my mouth shut, which sometimes is, fires against me. But I'd rather say it than not. And some of the players were really struggling with it, so I tried my best to make sure they were all right. I remember going to shops, buying food, like protein bars for players, and I got back. I'd sent my resignation email before we even got down the end of the runway on the plane. I was done. My mindset was I'm going to concentrate on watching a little lad and get back to try and enjoy it, because it did kill my love for the game, really. And that was not a Liverpool thing, or certainly was definitely not a player thing. The players were great. It was just a particular element of the women's side that did affect me quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, like it's gone on record of your achievements this season at Chorley as a whole team. What has that been like, and is it up there with one of your best achievements in your career with the FA Cup run?
Yeah, when this season took off, I had no intentions of being involved in footy. I was done. I was retired. not saying I was happily retired because I wasn't, you know, you miss that, you know, it's quite clear I missed that crack with people. I missed the banter. I don't necessarily miss the game. Well, I'm pretty sure other players who are retired probably said the same. And in fact, the ones you miss that dressing room that you can't ever explain to anyone. You can't explain that feeling of when you walk in the dressing room and that look that someone gives you, and that, even if it's just like rubbing someone's head and sort of a sense of being involved in something. Then I'd heard the Charlie job was coming up, and it's quite funny really. I spoke to Burmo. It was actually brilliant because Burmo was said, "Well, let's have a meeting." And he actually said to me, "You're a risk." And I said, "What do you mean I'm a risk?" He said, "Because as you're a player, you're a lunatic." And you know what? I sat there and I thought, "You're right, I am, or I was." But as a coach, and I said to him, I said, "I back myself as a coach. I'm comfortable what I do. I'm quite confident in my ability as a coach. You know, I've worked with some good goalkeepers and, you know, some good mentors." And he was right. It was a risk. And I thought, well, actually, and he took a gamble really for him because Vermo is very close-knit about who he has around him. And then he sort of said, well, let's see how it goes, first few sessions. And then after the first few sessions, I knew where I stood with him. He knew I was, you know, as a coach, I'm always willing to say something. But I would never ever say it to the manager. And I think that was his worry. Would I say it to a manager as him in front of the players? Well, he didn't know me as a coach, clearly, and I didn't do it. And then the season, in relation to being up there's some downs because no fans in. You know, my biggest upset about the cup was that my little lad couldn't come.
Yeah.
I'd love my little lad to be part of that. You know, for him to be able to come to the Wolves game, particularly, would have been, you know, right up there. You know, I think he enjoyed it anyway, watching it on telly and a few things that went on. But he, not having him at the game hurt quite a bit, and probably soured it a little bit. But also sort of, it's very strange. It's fantastic. The Peterborough trip home was ridiculous. Really, really good. And it was like being back in the old days.
Yeah.
But the Wigan game was surreal because we're in lockdown. We finished the game. Can you hear the dog going ballistic? We finished the game. Just let me, 1 second, mate. Sorry, pal. Don't bother me. The back's its own shadow. But yeah, the Wigan game was surreal. It was sort of, we won and we sang our Adele song that was, at the time, no one really expected that to become as well known as what it was and become like a bit ridiculous. But then we all finished, we didn't even have showers because you couldn't have a shower because of COVID. Got your trackie, got in your car and drove home.
Yeah.
It was like where any other day, we'd have been in the bar till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning getting absolutely willy beaming steaming. So it was, that was bizarre. But then the Peterborough game was right up there. You know, to do what we did at Peterborough against their first team was ridiculous. Then the Derby game was a bit weird because we played against the kids.
Yeah.
So we went from being massive underdogs to being massive favourites in a week. And so the pressure then was on us because you don't really want to slip up against the team of the youngsters from a club. So we beat them, and then obviously we got Wolves, which, you know, in all honesty, on the night we should have got something. I think if it had been a league game and we'd have missed those chances, we'd have been going ballistic because we had some real chances. And they had 2 shots all match, and one of them happened to be a worldie that did all sorts in the air and ended up in the top bag. So it is up there. It's definitely up there. You know, I've had a good cup run when I was at St Bridge. I had a great cup run when I was with Salford. We had a good cup run at Far. We got to Plymouth. You know, I've been a few clubs where I've had decent cup runs, but it certainly, like, it's the furthest I'd been. And it was definitely enjoyable. It's sort of sad, really, because we went from being right up there, so high, and play Wolves, to now the league's null and void, and stuck in limbo with that. Well, because in my head, at the beginning of the season, my head was 1 more year. I wanted to get the love out of the game, and I didn't want Liverpool to be my last memory of footy. And I went and I did it and I loved it. But now I'm at a point thinking, well, it's finished. We're finished in February. That wasn't my plan.
Yeah.
You know, so it's plans change. So
for the future of Craig Dootson, are you saying that you after Chorley you're going to be done, or what's sort of the plan?
Yeah, well, I think Chorley will be my last club coaching wise. I think, you know, when that comes to an end, I don't know. You know, Vermo might say, Doots, you're not wanting next season anyway. So, but
yeah.
You know, I wouldn't go to another club after this. I think I'm sort of done. You know, I'm work wise, I've got a good job. I work for a good company. I'm looked after at work, and I don't want to risk that by any means. You know, so I couldn't risk going back to a club that sort of delved in and out of daytime training, because there's no way in my job I'm too busy to be able to do that now. I've always sneakily wanted to sort of go into management. I've always sort of just the taste at Kendall was quite good. I quite enjoyed it. Just where that will be, you know, I always fancied the Bamber Bridge job, always, because it's on my doorstep, like 5 minutes from where I live now. But Jamie Milligan's there, you know, he's a mate of mine. I would never, you know, he's a fantastic lad, fantastic player, and a great manager, so I would never even entertain it.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's more, you never know. If something comes up, fantastic. It doesn't, you know, I'm happy with what I've done and where I'm going to end up. So can't be grumbling.
Yeah, and before we end this, I think you touched on it before about your children. Don't they both play football, and do you think they have a chance?
My little girl doesn't interested in anything now other than Horton. Well, a boy at the minute, which is painful for me to deal with. We'll not go into that one. Just in case he ever goes missing. But, my little lad loves footy. He loves football. If he didn't look like me, you won't think he was mine because he's fast. You know, that's a def that you'll probably think he was Gareth Donnelly's. But no, he's very. He loves his footy, and he don't get any pressure. You know what? If you do all right, he plays in the youth setup at Chorley. He plays for a team called Sharnet Richard, and he loves it. He loves playing football, and I don't. If something happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. He has to have his head screwed on at school.
Yeah.
No, he's all right. It's just so hard. I know how ruthless football is.
Yeah.
Part of me sometimes thinks I'd rather you not play, but I love watching him. But to be fair, there's sometimes I go and I want to kill parents. So I have to like stand away from everybody. So COVID was great at the beginning because you couldn't stand near anyone, so I couldn't cut anybody. But yeah, it'll be what it'll be. You know, he's got. You know, he goes out now. He does his strength and conditioning twice a week with a club. He goes for 3 runs a week. No, he does all right. He's got a touch like a baby elephant, but he's quick, so it doesn't really matter. As long as he enjoys it, that's all that matters. Whether he ends up playing on a park with his mates or he ends up playing decent level of football, I've said that to him. You know, you can do all right playing non-league. You don't have to set your mind on I want to be a Premier League footballer, because the chances are, will he be a Premier League footballer? No, he won't. You know, I've told him that.
Yeah.
You know, and I've just said, you know, set your mind on, you know, just play football to the best you can do, but make sure you've got a backup plan. And I'm not sure what his backup plan is at the minute. It's FIFA or Fortnite or Call of Duty. They tend to be a backup plan at the minute for all these kids, don't mix it up.
Yeah.
As long as he's smiling, that's all that matters, mate.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you for coming on. I've enjoyed speaking to you.
Oh, pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me.
And you need to see if any of the other lads in that group chat want to come on and have a chat about their time as well.
I'll put it on now, mate. I'll message you straight away. I'm pretty sure you're quite good to get a couple of them on.
Yeah.
Yeah, there'd be there's quite a few on there. Like I said, it was a group that was set up. Kev Parr, obviously, was quite poorly early on last year, and wanted to get all the lads back together. We didn't expect that so many would, you know, be back in, and we're more gutted. We all had a big drinking session planned last year, which we couldn't do. So, minute out of this, Marcus Allos is going to do his best Elvis again, because I believe he still does his Elvis impersonation. So he's going to do a bit of Elvis. We're going to end up probably at Stanley Bridge in the bar and get absolutely steaming. And Dave Pover and John Hall can foot the bill.
I'll let Dave know.
Yeah, brilliant.
All right. Cheers for that, Craig.
All right, well, thank you very much. Take care.